Welcome to another episode of Connection Fairs. My name is Fabiana Coll. Thank you for being here. I had a guest in the podcast last week, and we recorded a beautiful episode in Spanish that I wanted to share with you today in English. And I wanted to share a couple of ideas. I would say it's especially for immigrant parents that are raising their kids away from home, especially in a different language. But I think we can all learn from these things because it involves also the idea of helping our kids develop healthy reading habits and especially developing that love for reading. We cover those two topics because the person that I interview has an online library, especially for immigrant parents from Venezuela that are looking to get some books written in Spanish that has some cultural value that they can share with their kids, which I found fascinating because she realized when she had her baby in London, she was living in London, she's now in Spain, but she realized that taking her baby to all these activities and library and story time and everything, she felt she was lacking of something because her son was only learning everything in English and it wasn't the language, but it was also a different culture. And, I could relate in many levels to Marina because she was raising her son in London around similar time that I was there actually. And she was telling me how she started taking her son to like library story time and activities and everything. And she was like, this is great. It's been good to meet other parents. It's been great for my son to play with other kids. But I feel a massive lack of culture here, like all the songs, what are these songs and all these stories that are being told in the library. Like I really would love for him to be exposed to more of the Venezuelan side of things and the songs that I grew up with and the stories that I used to read with my parents. And you start to feel that, and I could relate. Like I remember clearly one time that my husband still makes fun of me because there was one time when I went to a story time with my baby and they were singing, of course, as they do. Like, and I love those activities, by the way. I was one of those that really enjoyed the play groups and the library time and all of those. And I remember there was this time that they were all singing, right? Like whatever song it was then. And they had the brilliant idea of like, oh, each parent is going to sing a song. And I froze. I was like, what am I going to do when it's my turn? I have no idea what song I'm going to sing here. Oh my God. I really struggled because my son was in the middle, like with all the kids and looking at me, like waiting for my turn and waiting for me to sing. And there was this song, The Little Bunnies, that they were doing that day, and I think someone at the end helped me, and I was just like not singing properly, but trying to. But I remember there was this song, the little bunnies jumping up and down, and oh my God, I could cry when I hear that song these days because my son fall in love. Like he loved it. He was dancing, he was jumping and lying down with the other with the other rabbits, and super cute. I mean, with the other kids playing as rabbits. Anyways, I got home that day and I played the song on and on, back to back, the whole afternoon because I wanted to learn. And I was like, okay, I need to learn one song because if something like this happens again, at least I need the one song. And anyway, so you have many experiences like that as an immigrant when you are exposed, because it's different when you are like, I don't know, some parents might prefer to isolate themselves and stay home and feeling safe. For me, it was the opposite. I wanted to go and see people, and then I needed that social aspect as much as I needed to be home. I needed both things. So I love all those play dates and play groups and meeting people with kids in the same ages. Anyways, so what I actually discuss or chat about with the person that I interview with Marina for the Spanish version of the podcast is that she felt the same. She wanted to go out. She wanted to meet everyone and expose her son to other kids and activities. But she felt that lack of like, oh my God, how do I show you the songs that I grew up with? And she started putting together some events actually in London. I was lucky to go to one And they were special events for Venezuelan families, pretty much, to share one. I remember it was like one Sunday morning and a story time in Spanish and songs in Spanish. And it was brilliant because it's something that I probably thought about it, but I never had the idea of like, oh, I actually could do it. But in my head was like, oh, I wish someone was doing it. And then in London, I went to one that this person that I interviewed put together, which was really nice. By then, it was only like songs and a story time was part of it, but not as much. But she realized with time that with stories, she could also expose her son daily to different things, not only the vocabulary, but also the values related to our culture and special terminologies and meanings and places and things from history and different aspects from our culture and our country that they can learn with books. So she decided to be more committed, even more committed, to raise a reader and help her son develop healthy and incredible reading habits, because she had the mission not only for him to read and be exposed to all the benefits that reading can have for someone and for a child, but also as a tool to combine the culture and to get him exposed to the language that she wanted him to have apart from English while raising him in London. And we had the same intention of like creating that habit of incorporating reading early on in our routine for our kids. And I remember my son was like 6 weeks exactly when my mom left. She came to visit to help me. And as soon as she left, I was like, okay, we need some sort of routine. And we started like bath time and then a little massage and then reading and whatever you wanted to do. But reading was always part of that. And we really believe that made a difference in the way that our kids read to this day, and having that moment that they appreciated like so much more than they probably appreciate now that they are older now, because now they love reading. They read on their own. I go and like next to them. They sometimes read to us. And eventually, rarely, I will read something to them. We still have that moment together. But I think the fascination of them listening to us while we were reading is definitely different, because now they immerse themselves in the stories. And Matthias the other day started reading a book actually to myself, and we had done it before with different books that he reads to me. So it's very different and things change and move. So looking back, I'm sure that created or that made a difference in terms of the relationship they have with books, because for them that was the best moment of the day, like at the end of the day lying in bed with mom or dad, and we used to make these sounds and put out so much effort in that make them fun. I think that's one of the things that makes a difference. When we make something fun for them and we create routines around those things, then they end up giving importance to those things and giving them value. So I think for my kids, and same that this person that I interviewed agreed to, having that moment every day since they were very little created something very, very important and positive in terms of the relationship between them and books, and the way they see reading, the way they see books, and having that habit around reading. Then when you think about it, the way I did it when I was reading to my kids in order for them to speak Spanish and have that second language was that I was translating every single book I was reading. Marina was saying that the way she approached reading in two different languages for her son was by choosing one book in English, one book in Spanish, one book in English. He had to choose always two different books, which now in retrospective, when I think about it, reading in Spanish for our boys was key, definitely, like incredibly for the developing of their language and for them to be bilingual kids to this day. It was amazing. And I always share it with new parents that have the same hopes. But what Marina in the interview was saying is that for her, it was also the cultural aspect. So it's not only the reading in Spanish, but also reading books from your home country. So that's when her job now with the online library all comes together, because it's giving access to families that are not raising their kids in Venezuela access to those books. It was different technique that she had, a different approach, but we both achieved the same. That is that our kids today speak both languages and love reading. And so there are different ways to get there. I think the importance is to find a way that works for you, of course, and that also you are giving the time for something that's important to you. I mean, those things, I believe you cannot just leave it for them to happen. You need to make sure that you have some time. And it was actually one of the questions that I asked Marina on the podcast in Spanish, that I was like, well, okay, we wanted to raise kids that are bilingual and that reading habits and so many different things. But what happens in the everyday when you don't have time maybe to read, when you feel overwhelmed and it's a commitment. I think it's a commitment, and it's also, making sure that if you don't do it one day, you still don't lose the habit another time, and you can continue to do it. Like, eventually feel that it's never too late. You can always catch up. You can always put more effort in the things that are important for you to pass on to your kid. Well, we also discussed the importance of being very committed to the second language, and I actually have another podcast episode sharing specifically my experience with this and what has worked for us. You can look it up. I'm gonna leave the link also on the podcast notes of this podcast. But the other thing that we talk about it in terms of the raising bilingual kids was being firm and assertive and clear and constant in your mission in terms of when the kids come and speak to you in English. And my kids know, and Marina was agreeing on the same, like her child knows already that she knows how to speak English fluently, but you can still laugh and say, what did you say? And my kids wouldn't say the whole phrase in English, but they would incorporate some words that they forgot, or that is easier, or they became more obvious in English. So anyways, that helps always to be very consistent with that. And Marina also shared the importance of the community and finding a community of people that share the same language, that even if the kids end up speaking between them in English, they can still listen to the parents and the conversations around them, and I really feel that's very important. But it's the fact that they are listening and we are supporting each other, which, well, it's another thing as well. But anyways, what else did we talk on the episode in Spanish? Another thing that was interesting, and going back to the reading bit, is that the biggest challenge that the person that I interviewed was sharing in terms of developing reading habits for our kids is, of course, screens, because they are so accessible. And if they're always around, it's easier for the kids to pick a screen and turn the TV on than grabbing a book. And we talk about the importance of, finding books and having always books around as an option. Even when we go to, and it's my friend was agreeing the same, like when you go to an appointment and you have to wait, you have to catch the train or the plane or car rides. If you have books around, they will always go to the books. And even if they ask for the screens, you can say, no, I have this. And in the case of my boys, they don't even ask, because they know, and well, that's for another episode, but they know, depending on the circumstances, if I'm gonna let them like turn the TV on, or if they should grab a book. For example, in the mornings, it's very clear, like we never turn the TV on, so they gravitate to the books because that's the option that they find around, and there's always books around. But it's definitely a challenge with the screens, because everything happens faster, it's easier, and that's when the boundaries around screen times come as well. So we leave some room for them to get bored and to find those books and to develop that habit and love for books. Well, the other thing that we discussed in terms of the books was, she recommended trying to do the reading bit very fun, and try to create an environment that is fun, and try not to, in terms of the cultural aspects that we want our kids to have, and the reading habits and everything, it's always good to make it fun for them, and not to have an experience that feels very forced and they feel obliged to do, and pressure. We don't want anything of that. Anyways, this was a little episode to share with you some of the ideas, and just to go back, some of the main things where books play an incredible role when raising bilingual kids, even more than you suspect, because books can not only transfer vocabulary, but they can also transfer culture. When you read in your language, and the books are written originally in your language, from your country in particular, if you can find those, they play an incredible role in raising bilingual kids. The other thing is the importance of reducing screen time so that kids can gravitate more towards book and leaving room for books and having them always around. And in terms of the bilingual kids, also the community plays a big role. Well, this is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I always finish the episode saying we're all doing the best we can with the tools and the information that we have. I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments, please get in touch. I always love to hear from you. Have a beautiful weekend. Bye-bye.